There's a moment in every painful relationship where silence starts to speak louder than love, where your heart begins to realize, this isn't connection anymore, it's survival. Maybe you've spent months, maybe years, trying to make it work. Ignoring red flags, hoping for change, telling yourself, if I just love harder, they'll finally see me. But deep down, you know something isn't right. You feel drained, not fulfilled. You question yourself more than you feel safe. And somewhere along the way, you stopped recognizing the version of you that used to feel whole. Walking away doesn't always come with a dramatic ending. Sometimes it's just the quiet decision to stop betraying yourself. And today, we're going to talk about exactly when that moment arrives. Let's break down the 6 clear signs that it's time to walk away. No more second guessing. No more waiting for someone else to change while you slowly disappear. This isn't about giving up. This is about finally choosing you. At the beginning of a relationship, communication feels like connection. Even difficult conversations can feel productive, like you're both getting closer to understanding each other. But over time, you might find yourself stuck in a loop where communication doesn't bring clarity. It brings exhaustion. This is your first red flag. It's when expressing your feelings starts to feel more like walking on eggshells than being open. It's when you're constantly rewording, over-explaining, or holding back just to avoid setting them off or being dismissed. You spend more time preparing what you want to say than actually saying it, because deep down you already know the outcome. They won't listen, they'll twist it, or they'll shut down completely. Healthy communication isn't always easy, but it should feel safe. In a healthy relationship, your voice doesn't get punished. Disagreements might still happen, but they come with resolution. In toxic or emotionally disconnected relationships, disagreement becomes a war. Your concerns are minimized. Your emotions are labeled as too much. You're made to feel guilty simply for needing reassurance, clarity, or effort. This is especially true in relationships with avoidant or manipulative partners. Every attempt to talk about your needs becomes a trigger for them, and instead of hearing you, they accuse you of being dramatic, needy, or ungrateful. You end up apologizing just to keep the peace, not because you actually did anything wrong. And here's the trap. You start believing that your needs are the problem. Over time, you shrink. You stop voicing what hurts. You internalize their dismissiveness as your own overreacting. The relationship becomes one-sided, not just emotionally, but communicatively. You're doing all the emotional lifting, all the explaining, all the compromising, and getting nothing in return but silence or defensiveness. This is not a phase. This is emotional erosion. One of the biggest signs it's time to walk away is when communication becomes a form of emotional labor you're doing alone. When it no longer brings connection, but anxiety. When conversations feel like you're talking to a wall, or worse, into a trap. Stoic wisdom reminds us, if someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. That's what emotional maturity looks like. But if the person you're with never reflects, never listens, and never grows, you're not in a relationship. You're in a power struggle disguised as a connection. Walking away might feel like you're giving up, but what you're really doing is refusing to stay unheard. Let that sink in. There's a difference between grace and self-betrayal. At first, you forgive because you love them. You believe in second chances, in their potential, in the version of them you saw in the beginning. You tell yourself, they didn't mean it. They were just stressed. They'll change. And maybe they apologize, sometimes with words, sometimes with tears, sometimes with silence, followed by charm. But what matters isn't the apology, it's the pattern. If you keep forgiving the same behavior over and over again, you're not healing the relationship, you're surviving it. Forgiveness without change is manipulation. It conditions you to tolerate what hurts, while they learn they don't have to be better, because you'll keep staying no matter what. That's how emotional debt builds. That's how resentment creeps in. You keep sacrificing your peace just to maintain the illusion that things are improving, when deep down, you know nothing is really changing. This is especially dangerous when love bombing follows mistreatment. They hurt you, then shower you with attention. You get confused. Maybe they do care, but they're not changing. They're resetting the cycle. True remorse is measured in changed behavior, not flowers, not guilt trips, not promises, not sex, not emotional performances that leave you feeling guilty for being hurt in the first place. You know it's time to walk away when your forgiveness becomes currency they use against you. When, instead of working on themselves, they work on softening you just enough to keep access, and you start questioning your standards. Am I asking for too much? Maybe relationships are just hard. Maybe I need to be more patient, but the truth is, you're not hard to love. They're just not willing to grow. That's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to see clearly. Stoic wisdom says, waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one. You've done that, you've shown up, you've stayed loyal. But if someone keeps making you question whether love is supposed to feel like this, it's probably not love and it's a loop. And staying in a loop hoping someone will eventually choose to grow only delays the healing you deserve. Walking away isn't bitterness, it's boundaries. One of the most overlooked yet emotionally exhausting signs that it's time to walk away from a relationship is the constant cycle of promises and letdowns. This is when your partner continuously assures you that things will change. They'll treat you better, listen more, stop hurting you, make you a priority. And for a brief moment, you believe them. Maybe they even show a glimpse of change. But soon after, things return to exactly how they were, or worse. This cycle is addictive. Why? Because it creates hope. And hope is powerful. It's the emotional glue that convinces you to hold on just a little longer. You think, maybe this time will be different. Or, they said they'd try and I want to believe them. But here's the hard truth. Patterns don't lie. If someone shows you the same behavior over and over again, no matter what they say, it's the behavior that tells the truth. In healthy relationships, words are backed by consistent action. If your partner is constantly apologizing but never changing, it's not remorse, it's manipulation, even if they don't realize it. You're not unreasonable for expecting growth. You're not asking too much when you want to see real effort and commitment to change. But when you've voiced your needs, your hurt, and your boundaries, and they continue to violate them, you're not in a relationship. You're stuck in a loop of emotional false hope. This emotional roller coaster slowly drains your self-worth. It conditions you to accept breadcrumbs and call it love. You begin lowering your standards, rationalizing their behavior, and betraying your own needs just to avoid the pain of letting go. Ask yourself this: if you stopped hoping for change, would you still want to stay? Would the relationship, as it is right now, be enough? Because if the only thing keeping you there is the idea of who they might become, then you're holding on to a fantasy, not a relationship. Walking away in this situation isn't about giving up. It's about protecting your future from being wasted by someone who only gives you just enough to stay but never enough to grow. Relationships are supposed to be mutual. Two people showing up for each other, working through life side by side with shared effort, shared responsibility, and shared emotional investment. But if you're constantly the one initiating conversations, the one planning time together, the one apologizing just to keep the peace, the one making sacrifices while they stay comfortable, then what you have isn't a partnership, it's emotional labor disguised as love. Let's call it what it really is: imbalance. And over time, that imbalance becomes resentment. You might convince yourself, if I just try harder, maybe they'll finally appreciate me. But in reality, the more you try, the more they pull back. Why? Because they've learned you'll carry the relationship on your own. They've learned they don't have to show up because you'll overcompensate for both of you. And that slowly begins to redefine your self-worth. You start measuring your value by how much effort you give, rather than how much effort you receive. You become addicted to proving you're good enough to be loved, when in reality, the person in front of you should have been showing you that from the beginning. It's a hard truth to accept, but it's necessary. If someone wanted to prioritize you, they would. If they truly cared, you wouldn't have to beg for basic effort. Love doesn't hide behind convenience. It shows up consistently, genuinely, willingly. So if you're stuck in a relationship where the only reason it's still standing is because of your effort, your emotional labor, your patience, your hope, then you're not in love. You're in survival mode. Healthy relationships don't require you to exhaust yourself just to feel chosen. They require two people choosing each other every day without force, guilt, or pressure. You deserve someone who matches your energy, not drains it. Someone who meets you halfway, not leaves you doing laps around them hoping they'll notice. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is stop trying. Because when you stop trying to force love from someone unwilling to give it, you finally make space for the kind of love that doesn't have to be begged for. At some point, you have to stop asking, "Do I love them?" and start asking, "Does this relationship love me back?" Because love isn't just about feelings, it's about growth, alignment, expansion. It's supposed to elevate you, not shrink you. But when you're in the wrong relationship, it shows up in subtle ways. You stop chasing your goals, you lose touch with who you used to be. Your light dims because you're constantly walking on eggshells. You start choosing peace over your potential, just to avoid conflict. And suddenly you're not just stuck in a relationship, you're stuck in a version of yourself you don't even recognize. You start shrinking your voice to keep the peace. You stop dreaming out loud because they mock your ambition. You hide your authentic self because you're afraid of judgment, distance, or punishment. That's not love, that's suppression. And suppression breeds resentment, regret, and eventually, emotional numbness. Here's the truth. The wrong relationship won't just drain your energy. It'll rob you of opportunities, silence your potential, and make you feel guilty for wanting more. Why? Because some people don't want a partner. They want a cage. And the second you try to grow, they feel threatened. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because your growth exposes their stagnation. They'll call you too much when you start setting boundaries. They'll say you've changed when you stop tolerating disrespect. They'll accuse you of being selfish the moment you put your needs first. But none of that makes you wrong. It makes you ready. Ready to walk away from the cycle that's been keeping you small. Ready to outgrow the version of yourself that had to play small just to be accepted. Ready to return to your power, your purpose, your path. Stoic wisdom reminds us the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. So if your relationship is constantly filling your thoughts with fear, guilt, and exhaustion, eventually your soul will start to reflect that weight. And that's when you know it's time to go. Because walking away isn't giving up, it's giving yourself back. When you leave a relationship that's holding you back, you don't just walk away from them. You walk back toward yourself. If you've been listening to this and something inside you is saying, "This is me," don't ignore that voice. You don't have to wait until it gets worse. You don't need more signs. You don't need their permission to choose peace, because walking away isn't failure. It's wisdom. It's the moment you stop betraying yourself for the comfort of someone else. It's the moment you stop watering dead plants and start planting seeds in soil that can actually grow with you. You're not too emotional. You're not asking for too much. You're just in a space that can't hold the size of your heart. And that's okay. Not every relationship is meant to go the distance. Some are just chapters, meant to teach you, stretch you, and send you back to yourself stronger than before. So if you've been waiting for a sign, let this be it. If you've been waiting for the courage, borrow mine. You are allowed to leave. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to want more. Because at the end of the day, love should never cost you your peace, your power, or your sense of self. And the moment you stop settling, that's when the real healing begins. Drop a comment and subscribe if this spoke to you. Let me know where you're at in your journey, and if you're ready to reclaim your power, stay with me, because this is just the beginning.